Hey, it's Eric Crawford, and it's been a long day of basketball, and I do mean a long day. So let's take a look at what happened. We had the University of Louisville in both men's and women's basketball fall. We had Bellarmine lose at Duke. In short, everybody lost, but not all losses are created equal. Let's not take these necessarily in order, but let's take them in order of storylines, I guess is what we'll call them. The first up, the Louisville men in the Maui Invitational. They lose big to Arkansas, which isn't a surprise, 80-54. What is a surprise is kind of the manner of the loss. Louisville played for 25 minutes, some of the best basketball it's played all season, which is not to say it played particularly well, but it fought, it stood in, it scrapped, it was ugly, it mucked up the game, and Louisville was hanging around. They were in the game, and then Arkansas took off, and there was a huge run. They had 6 straight dunks and shot better than 70% from the field for most of the second half, and they just run away and hide, get up 27 from Louisville, and it's not a ball game at the end. And what looked like it might be a game that if you're a Louisville fan you could walk away from feeling halfway decent, you don't feel decent because you watched your team get dunked on 11 times, and that's not even including the layups in the game. And that's just not acceptable to let a team come down the lane or get out on the break and do that. Again, it was the Ellis show on offense and nothing else. There just was no other offense. But Ellis had 11 points, wasn't even the leading scorer. Eric Musselman, the Arkansas coach, said we came into the game, our goal was to keep him under 12 points. They held him to 11. If you do that, Louisville's not going to beat you. They're not going to have enough offensive weapons anywhere else on the court, even though the one bright spot for Louisville in this game, Kamari Lands got it going a little bit. He was 3 of 5 from the field. He'd not made a shot all season coming into this game. He finishes with a team best 13 points, but he and Ellis are the only two in double figures. And, after the game, Kenny Payne, obviously disappointed with the end of game effort, talked about what he's trying to achieve.
First of all, I thought Arkansas, they did a great job. Very athletic, NBA athleticism, length, played with a lot of energy. Felt like we played decent in the first half. Second half, they kept the pressure. They kept competing. They kept the energy, intensed it, and brought it more. And we phased out. I thought they out-competed us. They wanted it more. But that's what great teams do. There's a reason they're top 10 in the country, and they showed it. We're rebuilding the program. We're rebuilding a new culture. We're doing a new culture. And the trust part of it is vital. And that's not going to come overnight. When you talk about the greatest programs, the most winningest programs, the culture takes care of the trust. It's done already. We're establishing that. We're trying to build that.
Well, all this culture talk is fine, I guess, if you're a Louisville basketball fan and you're following this and you want to be supportive and hope the efforts work out, and it's all right. And Kenny does have a lot of culture to rebuild here. This is not a program that was resilient in much of a way. There's just been a lot of things happen. You can see why these players are beaten down. Payne talks about them having to conquer themselves, talking about how to build that kind of resilience within them, and yet so many basic basketball things they're not doing. They're not blocking out. They're not giving good effort on defense. They're not working the ball on offense. Sometimes the offense is just LL standing there dribbling. Nobody is working. They're not playing for each other. It's like they don't care about each other on the court and the collective destiny of this team, and that's a problem. And Kamari Lands, after the game, said not only that, he thought the team just quit.
I feel like in the second half, we kind of just gave up, and we just let them do whatever they wanted, and we weren't tough.
Whatever else this team does, it cannot quit. And that is one thing Louisville fans are tired of seeing. They're not going to watch much more of. Kenny Payne can say what he wants to about the culture, but job number one of his culture renovation is to get some fight into his basketball team and to keep it there. We'll see if he can accomplish that. It's not going to be easy. They got Texas Tech up again, 2:30 on Tuesday from Maui. It doesn't get a whole lot easier for Louisville as they move forward. Now, similar vein, Bellarmine goes to Duke. Bellarmine was actually a bigger underdog at Duke than Louisville was against Arkansas on a neutral court. Louisville's a 15-point favorite or underdog. They get beat by 26. Bellarmine was a 22-point underdog at Duke, and they lose by 17, and they're in this game most of the way. It's 12, right around the under 4 timeout. They are in it. They're only down 8 at the half. They withstood a 16-2 Duke run in the first half, and that was really the only difference in the game. Otherwise, these two teams played evenly. Uh, on the scoreboard, on the crawl on ESPN, it's not going to be very impressive. You're looking at it, it's another 17-point loss for a small mid-major against a power program, but this was a good performance from Bellarmine. They were playing down a man with Alec Freem out of the lineup. They're guarding 7-footers. They're guarding 7-footers with guys who are 6'4" and 6'5". Peter Suter and Garrett Tipton going in there against post guys, two of the best freshmen in the country in 7-footers that Duke brings in Filipowski and guys like that. And yet they're standing toe to toe. A couple stats that stood out for me from this game that kind of give you an indication of the effort for Bellarmine in this game. Points in the paint, Bellarmine 26, Duke 20. Duke 20 points in the paint despite all the size advantage they have. Bellarmine was determined not to give up a bunch of layups and dunks. They gave up 9 in the game. Not to let Duke come into the lane and score a lot. They were going to give up threes if Duke could hit threes, and Duke did hit threes. Duke made 14 threes in the game, is the other difference in the game, but right down to the wire, Bellarmine plays tough. Listen, if you're a Bellarmine fan, you can be proud of this basketball team, I think, coming back from this road trip to Clemson and Duke, and it doesn't get a whole lot easier. They get home at 3 o'clock Tuesday morning, go to class Tuesday. Wednesday morning, they leave at 5 a.m. to go out and play Loyola Marymount, and then UCLA, come back 2 days later, and they're in Rupp Arena against Kentucky. It's a true gauntlet, but they are really putting forth some effort in these games. And I would love to see, Louisville's in a depressed basketball state right now because they're watching U of L, which is the flagship team of this city, and nobody disputes that. But I would argue that Louisville has a team right now, and it's Bellarmine. And if you want to watch good basketball and be a part of something that could be special and could be winning right now, it's more likely to be happening in Freedom Hall than it is the KSC Yum Center until Louisville's basketball team decides it's going to put forth the same kind of effort that they're putting forth in the Highlands. And that's what we need to see. I hate to compare the two, but Bellarmine had more assists against Duke. And mind you, Duke is number 8 ranked team in the country. Bellarmine had 12 assists against Duke. Louisville has had 10 assists the last 2 games combined. And one of those was not against a top 10 team. So it's a tough situation, but we'll see. Bellarmine acquits itself well at Duke, but they do lose by 17, and they'll move on, and they'll start now their little West Coast road couple games as they come up. Final game I want to talk about, the Louisville women. They're coming back from the battle for Atlantis in the Bahamas, having lost 2 out of 3 games, which is not something we've seen in a while from Jeff Walz' program, but this is going to be a team that apparently is going to have to take some lumps early in the season. And their big problem is right now is consistency. They're not getting it from some newcomers that they needed to get it from. The other problem is rebounding. Gonzaga beat them bad on the boards. South Dakota State beat them bad on the boards. South Dakota State, this is not a gimmick win. South Dakota State was up 17 at one point in this game. It was legit. They just pounded Louisville on the interior and got whatever they wanted in there. Total rebound was 41-24 in this game. Second half points 11-4 for South Dakota State, and you just can't have that. Louisville had Haley Van Lith 26 points on 10 of 20 shooting from the field. Nobody else in double digits. And one night after having a big game, Morgan Jones goes scoreless. Chris Carr, who's led Louisville in their big win over Texas, comes back with just 5 points in this game and only 2 assists. Cardinals have just 12 assists in the game. Mikasa Robinson, again, 4 assists, 5 rebounds. She fills up the stat sheet, but she was only 1 of 5. Peyton Verhulst didn't have a good shooting game. She was 0 for 6. Olivia Cochran is going to have to figure out how to avoid foul trouble. She fouls out of this game. She only has 3 rebounds and 7 points to go with her 5 fouls. So Jeff Walz is basically saying, look, we're getting beat up. It's the same stuff we're working in practice all the time. It's not improving. Got to come home and get better. So Louisville's back in action on Black Friday. They take on Longwood at the KFC Yum Center. Look to get well, address some of these things. They got exposed in the interior in the Bahamas, and they'll have to make it better for all of them on a tough Monday for basketball in these parts. There are lessons to be learned and accepted, but not all losses are created equal, as we see. We'll continue to watch these programs as they move forward. Just wanted to kind of get into these games a little bit. You can read more about all these teams and their games at our website, WDRB.com. I'm Eric Crawford for WDRB Sports.